Andrew, what is the nature of God in Christianity from a philosophical point of view, a metaphysical point of view?
So the nature of God can be understood based on his revelation. I mentioned general revelation and special revelation. And so one aspect of the nature of God is that he's the creator of all things, right? He's the creator. And this can be inferred from, say, for example, the order and rationality of the universe. And also, when we think about causality, we can reason to a first cause. And so according to Christianity, God is that first cause. God is the creator, the designer of the order of the universe. And this can be understood not only from the Christian tradition, but we can find this in other religious traditions as well. So for example, the Muslims also have formulated various kalam arguments to prove that God exists. For example, the kalam cosmological arguments and the teleological arguments. And you also find this in the Hindu tradition as well. Right? The Hindus also have the cosmological argument. They deduce that there is a first cause creator. And even in the Chinese tradition too. So for example, in the Chinese dictionary written in the Han Dynasty called 说文解字, right? There's a phrase which says, 天神引出万物者也. Yeah, which means that God is referring to the one who brings about all things. 引出万物者也, bring about all things. So you also find the notion of a creator, right, in the Chinese tradition too. And so all this is perfectly consistent with the Christian doctrine of general revelation, right, which people can infer that there's a creator. However, there is also some aspects to the nature of God which can only be known from special revelation. And so, for example, the Trinity, that according to Christianity, God is not unipersonal, but is tripersonal. It's a triune God, three persons in the one being of God. And this is known by his revelation in history, in his revelation of himself through the Old Testament. We find that there are various prophecies, including also various mentioning of the Spirit of God, and also a messianic figure who also seems to have a divine nature. We find this in, for example, in the book of Daniel, for example, Daniel chapter 9. And Christianity claimed that these prophecies are fulfilled in the person of Jesus Christ. And Jesus makes some claims about himself which indicate that he regarded himself as divine. And his resurrection is supposed to confirm this claim. And therefore, because of all this empirical evidence, the early Christians experienced Jesus saying these things and doing amazing things. That is why the earliest Christians came to the conviction that Jesus is not merely human, but that he's a divine person. And therefore, it means that there must be more than one person in Godhead, right? Because the Father is God, but Jesus is also God. And also, Jesus also mentioned about the Spirit. And so this forms a basis for the Christian doctrine of the Trinity.
And that's very distinct from any other religious tradition, for sure.
Oh yes, this is very distinct because in Islam you find, for example, that they affirm that there is a singular creator of the universe, right? One being who created the universe. In many other religious traditions, you find that it's very polytheistic, right? There are multiple deities around, right? But in Christianity, you find something very unique, that it is referring to one single God, so it's monotheistic in that aspect. But on the other hand, it's tri-personal, so it's not Unitarian, it's more than one person within this one Godhead.
I mean, to reconcile those points of view is a philosophical challenge, and I've seen a lot of Christian philosophers deal with that, not all in similar ways. So there are very many different Christian approaches to it. The Islamic approach is easier to defend than the Trinity, because you have to go through some philosophical, some would say analysis, some would say contortions, to reconcile monotheism with the Trinity. So I understand how that views. How about fundamental characteristics of God? Because the traditional Abrahamic God, which I think reflects Christianity, Islam, Judaism, is what they call the omni-God. Omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowledge, omnipresent, present, and all good, all free. I mean, there are these large terms for the unlimited or infinite essence of each of these points.
Yes. So in Christianity and also in Islam, right, God is a perfect being who is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good, all-merciful, right? And in fact, the Christian doctrine of the Trinity is perfectly consistent with that, because being an all-loving God, right? God would have to have a kind of relationality between within Himself, in a sense, without the universe, in order that God can be independent of the universe. Which is why the Christian doctrine of the Trinity actually answer this issue by saying that even without the universe, God in eternity is three persons sharing a love relationship with one another. And so God can be a God of perfect love. And so even though the doctrine of the Trinity may have some other philosophical issues to address, as you mentioned earlier on, right, that you don't find in Islam, for example, right? But on the other hand, it has a greater explanatory power. It's richer, right, in that sense. The tri-personal God having this relationship.
I'm not sure the internal logic of that flows, because you're saying God is love, and therefore you need a Trinity to express the love without the universe. But those are two independent things that you're sort of bringing together, because you're defining God as love without just because you're doing it, and then you're defining a Trinity based on certain arguments. But our understanding of God as love and also as Trinity from a Christian point of view is that there is evidence to think that these are true. So because Christianity claims that God has revealed Himself in nature, in creation, but also in the person of Jesus, who show us that God is a God of love by His acts, by His kindness that He showed to other people, and also the historical evidence confirm His claim. The historical evidence for His resurrection confirm His claim to be divine, and that's the reason why, on the basis of all this evidence, that Christianity arrived at the conclusion that God is triune. So the Trinity is not something that Christians concocted or invented, right, to try to make sense of things, but it's based on God's revelation of Himself in history, and that's why Christians arrive at the conclusion of this, that God is triune, and then they try to make sense of it, right, by thinking about how could it be possible that God is one, and yet one in one sense, but three in another sense, and therefore there's actually no contradiction, actually. We could argue that for a while, but certainly we would agree that that is a fundamental distinction of Christianity versus the other religions. Once you get to the general characteristics of God, as we do the Trinity.
Yes.